I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Put my hat up.
I'm South Carolina, so I just...
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Mars?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Johnny.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's a
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Donnie, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it for all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
Happy Sunday, everyone. First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Marsha Jews, are you with me?
I am here. I'm always with you, brother.
Marvelous Marvin, Doc Cheatham, are you with me?
Good afternoon. I am. Thank you.
Hey, Doc.
How are you, my dear?
Gary Crum, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
Hey,
Good.
Gary.
Gary, I know your time is limited. Marsha, why don't you set this up for us?
So we were having a conversation today earlier, and the whole concept was who's going to be the next mayor? Are we satisfied with the mayor that we have, and should he be reelected? And who else is out there, and what does the playing field look like? We know that Sheila Dixon has been talking about she wanted to run again. She's shown some interest. Eric Costello has shown some interest. Bill Henry, Jane Miller, and Thyru. They've all been showing interest. So what are we supposed to do with all this information?
So, Gary, since your time is limited, what do you think of the city of Baltimore? Where would you like to see it going? Are you pleased with the direction thus far?
Yeah, I think Mayor Scott has done a great job so far. I mean, he's only been in there 3 years. He's done a lot of stuff in-house, which is very critical far as, you know, making sure the charter amendment and stuff is getting updated and new laws and policies are getting put in place, because you know, our charter amendment has been outdated for a long time. And I'm glad to see that some things have changed within the charter amendment so far.
Marsha?
Well, I think it's very interesting that we see that, but there are some other things. Like, what do you think about the fact that he had an affair and has produced a child?
Hey, that's his personal life. You know, I'm happy for him. You know, he about to become a father, which should be really a celebration. Anytime you know, somebody's ready to have a child, I really don't have anything negative to say about that. I mean, you know, I believe that's a gift, having a child, male or not. You know, he just happened to be a male and he's having a child, and you know, congratulations to him and his soon to be child's mother.
Marvelous Marvin, Doc Cheatham, how you doing this Sunday afternoon? I walked past your park a couple of times this week. but I walked down one block over. Was at Monroe. I've been looping the community, and that park is just a beautiful thing. You know, even though we have pockets of despair and hopelessness, when I come through that little pocket, I see a pocket of hope.
Well, thank you for the
on.
comments, and I'm sad to say, but I totally disagree on the observations about the mayor, and I really think what needs to be done, not only citywide, but I think in each council district, is for the voters to really take a clear assessment of what their elected official has and has not done. And on that basis and on that basis alone, not because what their last name is, what fraternity they belong to, what union they belong to, but on the basis of what they've done. We issued a document last year that had a list of 20 issues that we think someone can rate their elected official on. That list has gone up to 25 now. But we don't think folks ought to be voting just for the sake of voting because of what party or what sorority they belong to. We think it's important that they rate their candidates, and I had to totally disagree with the observation of the mayor.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I agree with you. I believe everybody should be rated with the work they've done, because we know for the last prior to 2016 election and prior to 2016 election, a lot of election officials, they've been in office 20 and 30 years, and you know, nothing was getting done in our neighborhoods. That caused for a lot of future young men and women to run for office going forward, because we saw our neighborhoods being run down, not doing anything, and going to the waste. So that 2016 was the first time we had a turnover in City Hall in 30 years. So, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. They should be ranked, and that's why a lot of people got voted out in 2016.
Gary, do you think that when the younger generations come in to office, do you think they should keep access to the elders, to the seniors, or do you think they should just kick them to the curb like it seems to be done right now?
No. Our seniors is essential to our everyday living. We should not be kicking our seniors to the curb. But what I do want our seniors to realize,
some seniors need to get their hind parts out the way. They've been
oh yes,
and
I
they
mean,
haven't groomed
in
anybody.
a respectful way, yes.
They haven't, especially if they haven't groomed anybody, if they haven't passed the ball to anybody. I mean, we get tired of seeing people, you know, kiss themselves, you know, make love to themselves in public. Like, well, damn, who'd you pass the ball to? Jason, come on in. I know you've been sitting there patiently. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Donnie, for the opportunity. I mean, I know I'm wearing sunglasses, but I'm definitely not wearing rosy-colored sunglasses, and I don't see it the same way. I'm sorry. I think this administration has been an utter failure. You know, the mayor has made promises like a 15% reduction in violence in the city. Maybe he would have got that if he wasn't on the progressive side of attacking the aerial surveillance program and would have kept the aerial surveillance program around. Maybe he would have got that reduction. You have more folks leaving high-level positions and in some cases getting kicked out of high-level positions in City Hall than ever before, than any administration I've ever seen. Not only that, you have some of the top positions, the fire chief, the police commissioner, DPW, like we have no qualified Black folks in our community that can run these organizations, that can run these institutions. But yet we see white faces being placed, which a lot of people are saying is really political posturing, you know, showing the city that, you know, he's following the status quo, that he's empowering white people to show, you know, the block of voters that are going to support Brandon, that, you know, that he's equitable and inclusive of white people in these positions of power. You know, I'm sorry, this administration is a complete failure. You know, no accountability in these different agencies. You got the police department going all over the place. And, you know, we saw what happened in Brooklyn Homes in reference to the mass shooting. Like, I don't see where you see anything positive coming out of this administration, that has really brought something to the community, especially the Black community. Maybe the
And
white
that's
community.
huge. That's huge, though. That's absolutely huge. And what they did or didn't do, it, everybody, some heads should be rolling. And let's talk about the woman sitting over there making $400,000 a year, and our children can't read or write or do the math or whatever. And how come she's still there? And how come we allow this? And how come this isn't something that we need to be able to go into front of that doggone mayor and ask him? Because you're the one that allows her to continue to sit there, and it's unacceptable.
Well, let me just say that I've seen this mayor pay more attention to the squeegee kids than any mayor in previous history. So that's one point that I have to give Mayor Brandon Scott. He's paid attention to the squeegee kids, even with Fox, super exploiting as they do the scenario about the squeegee kids. But Gary, who I'm seeing on the corners, who are just as offensive, are these poor white addicts.
Yep.
In the Black community. In the Black community.
Right there on North Avenue.
How do you come to the Black community bumming?
Yeah.
I mean, well.
And Fox never talks about them. They never talk about the poor white addict, and they just walk up to your car. It's like, hold up, pimp, back up. Step away from the vehicle.
Right. And like you just said, Donnie, a lot of people won't give him credit for the squeegee initiative because it actually has worked. And I think that's fair. So again, we criticize, like me personally, I'm not going to criticize administration about violence that's going on in our city that has been going on since I was born. That's just facts. Any administration, we can go from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, whatever. It's always been violence in this city. I don't care who was mayor. But the thing is what are we doing to create a different environment in our communities? Are we getting equity back into our neighborhoods in the urban communities that's been disenfranchised for the last, since I was coming up, since I was born? I'm 40. I just turned 41 July the 19th. So I know in my neighborhoods, we was always living like we was in a third world country. So I give credit to the administration for trying to put equity back into some of our neighborhoods, trying to uplift the communities that's been left out for 20 and 30 years. Mm-hmm. Of course, we're gonna have violence in our city, and I hear people talk about safe streets all the time. Well, guess what? If safe streets didn't exist, what you think the city would be in if they didn't exist? So people got to get that out their mind that violence is some type of somebody's going to come in and save us. No, they're not. The prevention starts in the communities. It starts with the people.
Let me shift over here to Doc. Doc, you've been working in the communities. You talk to young boys. You talk to young men. You talk to drug dealers. What's your take on the streets of West Baltimore?
In West Baltimore?
To Doc Cheatham. Unmute yourself, Doc.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Doc looking like Red Fox.
I like to stay muted, not talk too much. I wanted my young brother. Do you live in West Arlington or Reservoir Hill?
He ran for office in East Baltimore. Came in third place.
I would love you to come take a walk with me over in West Baltimore because it has not been significantly changed. I am president of probably the highest density community in Baltimore. We have not 3 or 4 communities. We have one, Matthew Henson, a little over 36,000 residents. We created our own crime plan. We don't have safe streets here. We don't have ceasefire here. We don't have Muncie here. None of them are in my community. However, our number of homicides this year is 0. That's because 4 years ago, we created our own crime plan. I don't know what part of the city you live in, but crime is not significantly going down.
He lives in East Baltimore.
I live in East Baltimore. Bond and Pressure Street area, in the 12th district, in the heart of East Baltimore, where all the crime in the world used to happen at. And to Mr. Cheatham,
it's still happening in East Baltimore.
Marsha, let him finish, please.
So I agree with you. Like when I was in in my neighborhood, we created a safe haven in our neighborhood, and we did it for 8 years with no funding from the city. And guess what? For those like the first 5 years, we didn't have any violence and a whole lot of crime going on either. And that was just based off of us being out there engaging with the community. So again, prevention starts in the community. It got to start with us. It can't start with the administration, and it can't start with the police. So we supposed to be able to go out there and help prevent the crimes, not them. They come in where we supposed to need the financial backing to try to help keep the violence and stuff down like that. But the prevention starts with us. So I agree with you, Mr. Cheatham. You know what I mean? So I have no argument there.
Can I throw something in here? For me, we got to tell the truth and shame the devil. How much of this really and truly in reference to the squeegee young men is concerned is really Captain Andrew and Dr. Bunley and men that really and truly should have been unhandcuffed from the beginning and unneutered from the beginning and allowed to go out there and engage our young black men in our community. You see the work that they do when the handcuffs come off and they're allowed to really engage and get into the crust of our community and work with our young men. So I don't give credit to the mayor for that. I give that credit to the Office of African American Engagement. We Are Us, organizations like that are on the ground that are actually working with these young men and engaging these young men on the corners. That's who I give credit to, not the mayor.
They fall under this mayoral administration, right?
Right. But it's good that he finally moved out the way and allowed Dr. Bunley, because these are the conversations I've had with Dr. Bunley before. I have actually told Dr. Bunley that I felt that he was neutered by this current administration. So I'm really glad.
Hold up. He was brought in by the previous administration.
Correct.
Catherine Elizabeth
Correct.
Pugh, right?
Correct. But when you look at what happened with his office actually got merged into the Office of Children and Family Success. So now he had an overseer on top of his agency, as opposed to him going out there and doing what he needed to do.
Isn't that understandable, considering it was another mayor's idea? And we've seen these mayors, former mayors, oh, that's my program. I've heard Sheila Dixon say Safe Streets, that's my program. I mean, it's not uncommon for one mayor, or even Governor Hogan. They leaned on him about not supporting the red line. Well, damn, nobody said anything about O'Malley, who could have left his shovel ready. So each new administration decides whether they want to continue to carry that ball or not.
Correct. Right? But I think that Brandon finally had, took the opportunity to release, again, the handcuffs. Stop micromanaging these departments and allow these departments to go out there and do the work that needs to be done with our young men. And I think that's what that was. He started off, again, like I said, neutering and keeping and handcuffing Dr. Bunley and his whole team. Well,
Dr. Bunley, to his credit, is very charismatic. I mean, he ran for mayor against Martin O'Malley, got 32% of the vote. And it's understandable when you have a threat. A lot of times, if you have someone who's a threat, like a Sheila Dixon, like an Andre Bunley, you try to coerce them into not busting you upside the head down the road.
But it gets in the way of the work that needs to be done. Our children need politics, though. Our children need role models. Our children need rites of passages. Our children need things that, again, if you move out the way and allow these organizations that are on the ground, boots on the ground, to do the work, we can get a lot ahead of this violence that's going on in this city right now.
Okay.
Dr. Bunley, when Catherine was there, Dr. Bunley was really moving forward.
Yes.
And she used to have a regular community meeting on a monthly basis to sit down and
action
develop.
Yes.
That's exactly right. And it was huge and it worked.
But she kicked over, she killed her own testimony with this whole Healthy Holly book. So all of that's out the door.
We understand, but that doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking
about.
Sure
it does.
I'm still talking about what she put in place and whether or not we can still
kicked over her own blessings.
I understand all that, but that's dead. I'm sitting here talking about what this man has talked about with Dr. Bunley and being able to give them the green light to do what needs to be done in the community. All the rest of that stuff is background noise. We need to deal with the people who know how to deal with our children who desperately need assistance.
Well, I will agree. I think Dr. Bunley should be, at least when some years ago, should have been running the school system.
Well,
I
too
think
many
Martin
egos
O'Malley.
getting away. Now you got somebody making $400,000 and don't even know what she's doing. That's another
Right.
conversation.
Right.
We've just been joined by Richard Deshay Elliott, a scholar, Johns Hopkins graduate. Richard Deshay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Donnie. I told you I'd join at 3:15.
Yeah, so I just want to read these comments from Andrew Carey, formerly of Baltimore, 27 years. Not one mayoral candidate had a comprehensive plan to redevelop the city. He says historically, council member districts had to scrap and scrape for local neighborhood plans, nothing that was comprehensive. Finally, he said, Dr. Bunley, he agrees with you, has always been handcuffed, too threatening. Okay, so Richard, we're talking about the future of Baltimore. It seems like the people at the top of the ship are not talking to the people at the bottom of the ship, and therein is the gap of confusion. Your thoughts?
I haven't been in the city since, let me see, I voted in the 2020 mayoral election, but I moved out right after that when I finished at Hopkins. So I have not been there in the time since, but I have to imagine that one issue that's affecting Baltimore.
Richard, we're going to disregard all of that. You know enough about Baltimore City and politics to see where the damn thing is going, and then stop the subterfuge.
Let me give something that I imagine is affecting Baltimore more that I'd like to hear what you all say. Around the country, volunteerism has been at an all-time low because of the pandemic, because of inflation, because of the economy, etc. And a lot of Baltimore's organizations are volunteer-run. And assuming that if volunteerism is down around the country and Baltimore is dependent on really servant leaders who've been volunteers for years in their organizations, I have to imagine this had a very detrimental effect in the city.
Doc Cheatham, you want to handle that?
No.
Jason?
No, I agree. I agree, Richard.
Now, Doc, I don't mean at all to say that people who've been working are not working. But
Doc, how much you get paid over there at Matthew Henson, Doc?
0 minus 0.
How much did you get paid at the NAACP?
0 minus 0.
Well, there you go, Richard. There's how many people did you get elected in the state? Get registered to vote in the state of Maryland, Doc?
Woo. I don't think I can add that high. I can only say there's no one in the state of Maryland in the last 40 years that had registered more people than myself.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Well, Richard,
that includes what has now been missing in action, our former felons. We fought for 20 years to get former felons the right to vote, and now these organizations that are getting funding, they're not doing anything to register our former felons, and now they have more of a right to vote than anybody else in past years, and we're not registering them. And we're wondering what we're gonna do next year, less than a year away. We need Lottie Dottie and everybody intelligently voting, not just voting, but intelligently voting. And if you're not basing your vote on some specifics, not friendship, not fraternity, not sorority, we're going to be in the same mess that we're in now. And I think we're in the worst mess that we've been in since I've been a voter, and that was back in 1971. I've never seen the city in as worse condition as we are in now.
Can I ask a question, Donnie? When you say you haven't seen the city in worse condition that you see now, can you explain to me exactly what you're saying? Because I can remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s in conditions that we saw, and I know you're probably a little older than me, and I can tell you now that a lot of Go ahead.
I have children older than you are. I'll give you this. Listen, this might help you. We can look first and foremost at the number of homicides. My community, Western District, we've averaged 50 homicides a year for 7 years. We need to look at the increase in food deserts. We're now up to 33% of the people living in Baltimore City are now in food deserts. Yep. We can look at the education system. The education system right now is the worst that we've ever seen it. We can look at the CEO, how awful that is. We can look at the contamination of water. Our elected officials did nothing. housing. We can look at water bills. We can look at 10,
Outrageous.
15,000 vacant homes. I can give you a whole list of things that are worse than they were any other time in our history.
So how about the thousands of opioid deaths, that continue to linger, and it doesn't seem to be a state of emergency.
And here's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing about
deaths.
I'm not disagreeing about some of that stuff. What I'm saying is that how is it that, and like I said, I'm a young man, kind of, but how can we blame administration that's been in office for 3 years for that?
We have a total disconnect. We got people in Baltimore City never seen their elected officials. No, the only time we're going to see them is next year when they start campaigning.
I agree. Listen, I agree with you with that. But what I'm saying is that if we're going to say that every time administrator or mayor gets elected, that in 3 or 4 years we're going to talk about stuff that's been happening 20 years prior to them getting in office. None of this stuff has changed.
So why?
Things are getting worse.
They should stay on the bench, because when you jump in this fight, it's just like last night with Earl Spence and Bud Crawford. All of that talking go out the window. You got to put up or shut up, and if you can't put up, don't get in the ring.
Right. And that's what I did. I got in the ring, right? I got in the ring. I tried to fight. I ran in 2016. I ran in 2020. I came in third place both times. And what I saw was that for some reason, I ain't gonna say the older generation or however you want to put it, they wasn't ready for a young generation of people who may not have been no puppets or had no strings attached to come into office and fight for the actual things that's going on in the community. I get more done not being elected in my community and throughout the city than I do if I was elected. But I know if I got elected, I would be doing the same type of work that I was doing in the streets that I feel as though our city council members should be doing. And
I don't know, Gary. I don't know, Gary. Most people change.
You don't change, man. Your character is your character. Is who you are.
Most people change. Very few remain the same.
I get that. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for me.
Doc Cheatham, you just seen more elections than all of us. Do people change when they get into office?
I think the disconnection from the community to the elected officials, sadly enough, gets worse. We have folks who don't know the plight of their communities. Yep. They don't know the crime. They don't know that a library in Penn North has been closed since April and haven't done a damn thing about it. There are things happening in our community today that our elected officials, because they are not connected with us, have no idea what's going on.
So do anybody like any elected officials that's elected right now for as far as what they're doing in the community?
Well, I love Marion Barry, and I know that doesn't answer your question, but I need a Marion Barry type. I need a Wayne Curry type. I need a Maynard Jackson type. I don't know what we got now. We got people with pom-poms and coiffed hair and Showtime. I don't know what we have now.
And we haven't seen it in forever. And so when you look at what is going on, and I lived in Washington when Marion was mayor, and he was in the community wherever things were. He was there, and he had his people were also involved in that community. And so what we need, we just looking at the people that we're running against or who's up and running. What is it that we want? And what is it that they have? And what's their capacity to do what we need them to do to run this town like a real metropolitan area? And there shouldn't just be pockets here and pockets there. What happens here? How come we have a food desert over in West Baltimore and East Baltimore? We had a black chain, couldn't even keep it. Super Pride. What happens? How do we as a community and the leadership with our politicians can make those things happen? And why haven't they happened?
Jason, can you tell me at all about the Board of Elections? I've heard people mention this election, 2016, 2020. Any thoughts on the Board of Elections, Armstead Jones?
Well, I know that everyone keeps trying to point the finger at Armstead, and there's some folks that think differently, that Armstead is not part of the problem. They're saying more that it's a state a board of elections issue. I agree. I know there's been a change at the helm. What is it? What's her name? Linda Malone is gone, I believe. Hopefully with Wes Moore in office, there'll be some oversight in reference to what's going on with our elections here in Baltimore City. But
Jason, in 2016, there were 1,800 voting irregularities in Baltimore City compared to 200 in the 23 other jurisdictions combined in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
That man kept his job. Can you make 1,800 mistakes and keep your job?
No. And I think what we have to do is make sure that there are more folks that are getting involved in the process. We need judges bad. We had issues, last election cycle in reference to just the amount of judges. We had polling stations that opened up late because we didn't have the proper staffing to even open up, especially during early voting, as well as on primary day. So we have to fix the logistic issues. Never mind who's at the top of the helm. If the citizens are not taking part in oversighting what's going on with the Board of Elections, the process is never going to work.
Doc,
May I answer the question?
Doc, anything on the Board of Elections? You used to work there. Used to be. What was your title at the Board of Elections?
I was president of the Board of Elections and also the first Black president of the Maryland Association of Election Officials. And I would say this: how do we have a city that boasts the fact that our predominance of people living in the city are African Americans? The area that we have the largest number of Black people actually living is West Baltimore, and there is no early voting, has not been since Armstead took over. There is no early voting in West Baltimore. How do we allow that?
Doc, I thought you could vote at the University of Maryland.
Yeah, you can vote at University of Maryland if you want to walk almost 2 miles to get to it.
Well, what about out west, like Edmondson Village? Isn't it one all the way out there?
Edmondson Village is southwest.
That's not west side, Doc?
No, it's not west side. Do you consider that the Western District? No.
No, that ain't.
How can you have the highest population of Blacks in Baltimore City and there's no early voting in that location? None.
What?
How do we profess that we have the majority of African Americans that reside in Baltimore City? Do we agree?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand, looking at the percentages, what is the highest population of the 9 districts? The 9 districts, where do you have the highest percentage of African Americans residing?
West side.
If you don't know it, it's the Western. Where do you not have an early voting site? It's the Western.
So it seems there's some voter disenfranchisement going on. Richard, what do you think of that?
And we had a similar problems in Prince George's. They haven't raised the pay rates for election judges in some years. So we had people being paid, $15 an hour, having to work sometimes the entire election shift in 90-something degree heats. And some of the proposals people have had of how they would fix it would include even potentially shuttering some of the hours. So we need to expand. I mean, I think that vote by mail has been a relatively positive process. When it happened the first time in the 2020 primary, I had to do a provisional ballot to vote in the mayor's race because they said they sent me an official ballot. I didn't get one. But other than that, I think vote by mail has been a pretty solid improvement. I think it has expanded access to the ballot somewhat, but we still have a desperate need of having better electronic voting, giving people more information on what each candidate is about and what they support, and definitely more community forums. Community forums have not happened as much as have needed to happen in the past election, in part because of COVID.
Gary, I want to ask you, I know, I'm sure you have other things going on. We hit you rather last minute, but when it comes to the voting for returning citizens, I remember during that 2016 election in particular, there were letters sent out that returning citizens could not vote. What impact does that have on the community?
Oh, it has an incredible impact, man. Because I believe Out for Justice, Nicole from Out for Justice, was leading that campaign, making sure that our returning citizens got a chance to vote. It had a huge impact in my district, in the 12th district. A lot of people, that wanted to vote for me, they didn't have the right polling place. They was having trouble at the polls. It was a lot going on back then, but it plays a huge role because you want everybody to be able to exercise their right to vote, and it affected a lot of people like myself who was running for office at that time, where them guys and the young ladies couldn't get their poll place and be able to vote.
So Gary, here's a
Marsha, you've employed a lot of people over the years from the returning citizens community. Why is that important to you?
Because
not you, Gary, Marsha.
One sec. Because for one, I was incarcerated before, and I know how it feels when you come home and you want to do the right thing, but there's no choices. A lot of times guys come home and they just want better choices. And when I see guys come home now, I try my best to point them into the right directions to give them better choices so they'll be able to take care of themselves and their families. So that's dear to me because I was in that position before, and I know how I feel to come home and want to do right. But sometimes if you don't have the choices to do it, you find yourself back out there doing the wrong things. So anytime guys come home, they always reach out to me. I try to make sure that I have some resources for them. I send them to different places and different people that I have met throughout the years and try to get them in a better position so they can be able to take care of themselves and their family.
Marsha Jews, what about your outreach to the returning citizens community, and why is it important to you?
Because I have a nephew who's in prison, and I love him dearly, and it's a horrible experience for our young people to be in there, and he's been in there several years, and we've tried everything trying to get him out. He's in the Midwest, but that's another conversation. And so because of that, I think it's important for people, and I've hired people where I work who are ex-offenders. And it's important to me that too often we don't really look at how people's lives begin and how they get there. And it's our responsibility, and I've taken it on, to be able to assist as often as I can, be it through conversation, be through mentoring, or being in a position to hire or help them find jobs. And people need a chance.
Richard, any thoughts? America has 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's inmates, starring Black people.
America has had for a very long time, will continue to have, unfortunately. And what's as scary as that existing number is the ways that that's becoming less visible, the way that prisons are moving even further into rural areas and are actually like an economic backbone. For example, in Western Maryland,
labor.
Yeah, for labor, also for getting federal money and grants.
Yeah. And
they get stupid money. And it goes to the people that are owning those for-profit prisons.
And beyond that, the charges or the economic money that you have to put up for people who are even on house arrest, that's something that has been implemented years ago. I have not really at any point ever heard what the legislature plans to do on addressing issues like this. And to be frank, it's just a cash cow for the state. It's one of Maryland's biggest, if not the biggest, cash cow in the state of Maryland.
Doc Cheatham, who do we want for mayor?
Right now, none of the above.
Why don't you run, Doc?
You sound like Darren Muhammad. Do you like anybody, Doc?
I'll tell you someone I'm very pleased of, and I like a great deal, and I couldn't vote for him, but I raised funds and helped campaign. I love Corey McCray.
Corey McCray.
I like his introduction of bills. I think there are a few, but I would say if we were to actually rate the mayor, the comptroller, president of the city council, and our city council person, I think the majority of us would not want them back reelected. That's why myself and many others joined the term limits. Now we need to go to another idea, and that is we need to have recall.
I got to tell you, I like the recall, but the term limits, why they implement it when black people got the domination? Why didn't they implement it when the white people had the rule? Why?
Because it's 30 years. Power? I love the term limits too, but and we been needed them. We needed them 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But at some point, man, we gotta, like you said, if nobody's willing to pass the torch, then this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't pass the torch down. You let the corporations come in, and now you got term limits. And I agree with them, because nobody should be in office 20 and 30 years. You're out. You don't have no reach to what's going on in the streets. You're not out in the streets no more, and you're not established for what the people that's out there. So I think the term limit is great. Now I think it should have been 3 terms instead of 2. I believe you can be in office for 12 years and get a lot of stuff done. You don't need to be in office no more than 12 years.
Let me ask you this: what do you think about the mayor giving Baltimore Gas and Electric the power over our underground utilities?
That's horrible.
Yeah, I have a lot of residents and people complaining about that, and the safety issues with it. It's a lot with that, but I mean, we ain't got no other gas electric company to go to. So what you gonna do?
Richard, you want to handle that for me? What you think of BG&E, Richard? Now I come to you, Marsha.
BG&E has had actually BG&E might be the first established gas and electric company in the country. BG&E's been in Baltimore for at least 200 or so years. The monopoly hold they have in our state is paramount. Not only are they about to rob Baltimore metropolitan region blind with their rate increases, but the safety issues where they're having apartment complexes explode in Baltimore County, in Montgomery County, that is a BGE issue where I don't know whether it's due to lack of inspections or adamant refusal to address issues that needs to be addressed immediately, because it's costing people their lives currently.
Marsha, will the 3 women who were arrested in Federal Hill because they protested BG&E, will that become an election issue?
It should be. First of all, BG&E shouldn't be there. LaGrange, Georgia, used those same kind of pipes down there to put high-speed networks. And then what we're doing is giving a commercial corporation who has a black CEO the opportunity to do whatever they want to do, and they're making big money off of that. But the other piece that I wanted to even bring here is I'd like for you all to please give me 5 things that we should look for in our next mayor.
I'm gonna put character on there. Character.
Responsiveness.
Doc, what you think?
Education. I think it's a travesty what we had as the CEO and the board of school commissioners to allow this to go on as long as it has. Our children are failing. They're not even going to the school in my neighborhood. I think education got to be significantly changed and improved.
I would add in their business. Baltimore is so anti-business. Nobody wants to come in. People are leaving here. We have 0 Fortune 500 companies. What company wants to come to a city where the people can't read nor write?
Right. We got one more.
Come on, Gary. What's your top issue?
Say that one more time, Donnie.
What's your top issue?
For your
mayor. In the city?
Go ahead, Marsha. Pose the question.
So what would you like to see in the mayor?
My morals. Have good morals, man. Be who you are and be true to who you are.
So I think that bringing in businesses and helping businesses to thrive in this community, and education.
Doc Cheatham, you always talking about health. You didn't mention health. Isn't that a part of the food deserts, the lead paint, the lead poisoning? And I don't mean from paint, I mean from them guns.
We can also talk about the number of opioid deaths, which are more than homicide deaths that are here. I really think there's such a disconnect from the community and the representatives that we put in. That's where I see the necessity. Either the elected officials got to get more in tune with their communities, or we need to elect new people. I would ask this: how many of us have been to recreation centers, Montgomery County, PG County, Baltimore
Oh my
County,
God, they
and
look
then
like
have you compared them to our recreation centers?
ours look like day and night. Jason, come on, top issue. Say the question, Marsha.
The top issues that we should expect that we want our next mayor to have. What are their expectations for them?
We didn't say character. We didn't mention education. We didn't mention
responsiveness,
Gary
business,
said morals. Richard
health,
said responsiveness.
lead poisoning, opioids, death.
Mine is the future of the workforce of this city. We know that AI is on the cusp of, and automation and autonomous machinery and stuff is on the cusp of taking jobs that in many cases, because we lack the educational fortitude, especially with the school system that we have here in Baltimore City, we're incapable of handling these high tech careers, these high tech industries that are sprouting. They're building a whole place down there in the former Port Covington area that technically is built around technology. They're bringing in folks from Silicon Valley and Seattle and San Francisco from the tech sector, and they're bringing them in. They're planting them here because we don't have the workforce to be able to facilitate these jobs of the future. So I want to see the next mayor work on bringing in Apple, bringing in Google, bringing in these technology companies, and planting them here in our schools, and finding ways to take our children and inspire them in not STEM, not STEAM, but in STREAM. The science, the technology, the reading, the engineering, the mathematics. We got to get us into the playing field. We're not even in the playing field when it comes to the future of technology and jobs. We are going to be, they're already talking about this guaranteed income thing. We're going to be on the forefront and on the front of the line asking for guaranteed income, as opposed to us building intergenerational wealth from being a part of technology and innovation and scientific innovation and the next boom that's going to happen in reference to technology. We're going to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be
but
lost.
Here's something that I want to bring to your attention. We have the Greater Baltimore Committee, GBC, and every CEO in this Baltimore metropolitan area is a member. What have they done in our communities? And they've been around however long I've been here, since Sandy was in the middle school. So that's almost 20 years. And we're sitting here. How are they involved? Have you ever seen them in the community? How are they impacting this educational system? How are they impacting the employment? How are they impacting their training? What are they doing with the school system? What is their role if you are in the top leadership of every major corporation that's in this greater Baltimore area? What is our expectation from them? And what should we be doing for them to get them involved?
Well, Doc, let me expand the question. Doc Cheatham, we have more nonprofits than you can shake a stick at. We see them in Sandtown all the time. These carpetbaggers come here claiming that they're going to help empower us poor, uneducated Black people. Doc, what about the role of the nonprofit industrial complex in the improvement of Baltimore City?
Well, if you really look at our different areas, and of course, there are different districts, so everybody has a few groups in your area that are not being properly funded. But I can very readily say in the Western District, we can name organizations that are doing things that are not getting the funding. We can look at Umar Boxing. We can look at the youth, the mentoring of youth. We can look at recreation. We got two of the worst recreation centers probably in the state of Maryland, both on Bentlow Street. We're not using these nonprofits, and what we have money, millions of dollars.
What do the nonprofits do with their money? I see like the Family League, they got like $14 million, and it's like
they shouldn't be getting the money. They should not be getting
what
the money.
do they do with the money? Everybody, and then people say, "Oh, we don't do direct services. We give the money to." Well, who the hell do they give the money to? That's what I want to know. And when are they coming to my neighborhood?
Question. Why are we giving millions of dollars to Catholic charities? Why are nobody talking on these radio shows and TV shows? Why are we giving millions of dollars to an organization that had ruptured our kids and our young people, and now we giving them money? Are we checking to see that the money is being handled properly? I think there's nowhere in the world that Catholic charities should be getting the money, especially for state streets. They're not doing a damn thing.
He makes a great point. They have a track record of priests molesting and raping young kids.
And why are they getting in?
And they should be locked up.
Yep.
Richard, any thoughts?
I was gonna chime in about the nonprofit aspect. I looked at the city budget and the nonprofit funding. I think it would have been like 3 years ago, and the nonprofit funding is something like 2 times the active city budget. The nonprofit spending serves to justify itself. The purpose of nonprofits is to justify their existence. It is not necessarily to solve problems. Particularly after the uprising, a lot of nonprofit money flowed into the city of Baltimore, much of which was unaccounted for, almost none of which was spent on actual community uplift and improvement. And the story of the city's nonprofit, the impact of nonprofits should really be charted from that moment forward, because that's when national money entered the picture much more so than just the local and the state money. Gary, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, because I'm not arguing nonprofits are bad. There are absolutely nonprofits that do essential services for people, but the grand function of them is to provide governmental services with private money.
Yeah, you want to touch that?
Well, I know most of the nonprofits that I know are from like neighborhoods, young men and women who are actually on the ground doing the footwork, but never can get the funding from the city. Again, it goes with the how to get the money, and it's just a lot. A lot of the nonprofits I know, they do not want to deal with the city, because it's just they feel as though they get more done when they can do it by themselves. And I think that's a travesty that how the real grassroots nonprofits that really have the impacts on a lot of the urban cities can't get funding from the city. And it's not just this administration, it goes further and on and on and on. And I think that has to be looked at as far as the process of how to get money from the city when you're a small grassroots nonprofit.
So let me go to Doc Cheatham. Doc Cheatham, you're not going to like me after this question, so just get your lion roar ready. Baltimore is 9-1 Democrat. Why does it seem like we got more out of 2 Republican governors than all of these damn Democrats? What's up with the Democratic Party treating black people like a side piece of chicken?
I had a meeting just this past Wednesday with candidates that we're looking for to run. And one of the things that I said to them, and I've been saying to them for the last 3 years, because our electorate isn't as wise as we would like them to be, that they vote on people because of the party they belong to, the fraternity, the union that they belong to, that some of these folks, and we had some candid discussions, need to change their party affiliation to get elected, and then change it back when the election is over. I'm talking about Republicans need to switch the Democrats, and that's the only way we can get elected. We got people to get elected only because of their last name. We got candidates that are running that the rest of us have never seen them. They don't know whether they black or white.
You talking about Frank Conaway Jr.?
No, I'm talking about nephew.
Who's nephew?
You have another Conaway. I'm not talking about Belinda. I'm not talking about Frank Conaway Jr. I'm talking about the new Conaway that's in office.
He's not being seen in the community as a council person?
My neighbors say they wouldn't know whether he was black or white, dark skin or light skin. Never seen him.
Well, damn.
How did he get elected other than changing his name?
I don't see my councilman. I haven't seen my councilman in almost 10 years.
That was my discussion this past Wednesday. We did a special report card just on our council person in the 7th district. We're suggesting to folks, and I was on 45 as a result of that meeting we had, we're suggesting for every community that you create a report card and you rate your own council person to determine whether or not he or she deserves to be reelected. I think what we might be surprised to find, the majority of us cannot give our own city council person a passing grade.
Right.
Richard, any thoughts on nepotism? When people in office, they talk all of this smack about the person that they want to replace, they replace them. And next thing you know, they bring their son in, their daughter, their sister, their brother. And the challenge is sometimes they are dumbass.
I'm not going to speak as much on how people have used it as much as it says quite a bit about campaigning, about how much information can be visible, about how much the campaign process has advanced with, like, I'd say the accidental dynasty of the Stokeses is the one that deserves the most study. The Stokeses are not related, have no relationship to one another. The one just worked for the other. People thought they were re-electing the same guy, or thought they were electing his son. Like in other states, in others, like in California, for example, you list on the ballot what your occupation is. In some other places, like you might have a ballot where there's more information. The fact that our ballots are just first name, last name in alphabetical order, that in and of itself leaves a lot to be desired. Nothing on our ballots can give you an indicator on who you are voting for, or even if you're voting to reelect. In my district, people thought they were voting to reelect somebody who hadn't run in, hadn't run in several years. So there's a lot about how the community is not informed, but there's also to say that the procedure is as deliberately uninformative as possible. And
Doc Cheatham, Andrew Curry makes a post, create a report card template to build capacity. For years, you have done a report card. Do we need to return to that idea, Doc Cheatham? And thank you all for joining us. We've got 3 minutes left.
Without a doubt, we need to educate the voters and doing a report card on what are the critical issues from one campaign to another. If you write down the critical issues and educate the voters and let them decide, does my elected official respond to these issues, or do they get a failing grade? If they get a failing grade, don't vote for them.
That would be very interesting. I would love to see that.
They actually had a report card on account. I forgot who did it. One of them newspapers or Baltimore Banner. Somebody did a report card on all the councilmen, and they graded them. And tell you it wasn't good.
We did one last December. We'd be happy to send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, because I remember saying it, and I remember looking at it, and it wasn't good.
Civil rights at Verizon.net. Civil rights at Verizon.net. We'd be happy to send it to everyone.
Okay.
Only thing we didn't touch, Marsha, was the role of the churches.
Well, we need to make certain that we have, I guess, a ministerial alliance. Is it still around? And what are they doing? And how involved are they in this upcoming campaign?
Can I say this real quick? If we had one church adopt one homeless people in Baltimore City, guess what would be gone? Homelessness. We got more churches than we do homeless people. If each one take one, we end homelessness.
Well, I want to give a shout out to PM Smith for coming from Northeast Baltimore all the way over here to Sandtown and ministering to the people. I think Jesus would be in the streets with the sick and the people who need him the most. But so many times, like this man just said, we got more churches than liquor stores.
And we have too many liquor stores for sure. All right. Thanks, Donnie.
Any final thoughts, anybody, before we close out?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I like the fact that now our city councilmen have the ability to send out money to their area. That was passed in the charter amendment. So now we can actually, if you're a councilman, you can
or woman,
you can put money into your city where it actually needs to go at. Now I think that was long overdue.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is really wonderful. And I think that we should have in the next quarter or sometime soon, we should have a regular conversation about the upcoming election and bring the material that whatever it is that you think that we need to come up with a schedule so that we have this dialogue a lot more often leading to the upcoming election.
Well, there are a bunch of names that are out there. Zeke Cohen, his name is out there. Of course, the mayor, Brandon Scott. We've heard Sheila Dixon's name. What other names have we heard?
Wendy Basel, Wendell Hill Freeman.
I heard Snead might run again for city council president.
Eric Costello.
I heard Snead might run again. Shannon Snead might run again for city council president.
Who?
Shannon Snead.
Who's that?
Okay.
Gary, you know Shannon Snead?
Yes, I do.
Is she from Baltimore?
Yes. Well, she's not. I don't.
She's not from Baltimore.
Originally from Baltimore. No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Eric Costello, Bill Henry, Jane Miller, your boy Thyru.
Jane Miller. I didn't get no impression from Jane Miller. She's running. And Thyru is walking on eggshells because he doesn't want to be perceived as a perennial.
Oh, but you mean like the ones out up on Greenmount Avenue with the ladies?
We'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I told him I wasn't touching that no more, and
You didn't have to.
Gary, thank you for taking time out. What are your babies in the back? How many kids you got? Sound like you got a whole nursery school.
No, I got two, man. That's it, boy and girl.
Thank you for joining us. Thank y'all for sharing your daddy with us. Hi. Thank you for sharing your daddy with us. Marsha G's, great job.
Thank you, Donnie Glover. This is wonderful. And I do think we should have some sort of regular kind of conversations.
Come on, man. Say something. Don't just dip off like that.
Yeah, where'd you go, DJ Ray?
I apologize. I'm at Radio 1 and unfortunately a jack of all buttons around here. But I got to go with the underdog on this, Donnie. I'm going to throw Yolanda Pulley out there. She's currently working with some folks around the country, former mayors, talking about a blueprint for reparations for many of these urban cities. And she's going to be one of the only candidates that's going to actually have a blueprint for reparations for this city. So we're I
don't hear people talking about reparations other than
not at all. I mean, other than Council President Nick Mosby,
Oh, interesting.
You think Nick Mosby will run for mayor?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
You think I ain't break up? You heard me. You think Nick Mosby would run for mayor?
I would hope not. I hope he, stay out of that race right now. I think, unfortunately, the power couple is gone. The majesty of the Mosbys is gone. He better hope that he can hold that seat against Zeke. That's what he better hope for.
Oh, Zeke wants to be council president?
Yes, sir.
But I hear he wants to be mayor.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he wants to take that first stepping stone before mayor. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't think he can win in a majority black city. I don't know.
What about the councilman Jeezy Schleifer?
Again, I'd hope that some of these folks,
Is that his name? Jeezy?
Is it like Wheezy?
What's his name?
You talking about Yitzy Schleifer?
My bad. What I call him? Jeezy? Yeezy?
Out of the way, because most of these folks have an agenda. You even seen it with the Central Committee recently, and Yitzy and them. The powering.
Was Yitzy related to the Sean Rim? Was he related to the Sean Rim that broke that little boy's arm? That went
He was a dispatcher for Sean Rim at the time. That incident happened. With our young man from our community just walking through. And ended up having.
So we see that general take on black people.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, I don't see Zeke or folks like that being inclusionary. You know, they
Right.
you know, of our issues. Unfortunately, they have special interests. They're going to uphold the special interests. And most of our issues are going to be put to the wayside. You're not going to hear a black agenda from a Zeke Cohen or a Yitzi.
Let
He's
me
not
ask you
interested.
this, Jason.
He's not
Any thoughts
interested.
on Port Covington? I remember all of the hoopla, all of the council people seemingly got paid. Vote for this Port Covington. Now what?
I know most folks are saying that in a few years, Port Covington is going to be a gated community. You know, and all of
And we
these,
paid for it.
and we pay for it, right? And I keep telling folks, we have to remember, even though we're not property owners and we don't pay property tax, your landlord is paying the property taxes. And the majority of black folks in Baltimore City are renters. So that's our tax dollars that go into your rent, that go into the coffers of the city, that we continue to give away to special interest groups. And you know,
But how much do they get from the city to build that community? They built an entire community.
on top of
How
us.
much money? Yes, how much
And it's not
money
done yet.
came out of city tax dollars that we pay for?
Hundreds of millions. And then
Right.
you got, again, we hear that Westport is on the attack. We hear that Cherry Hill is on the next,
Right, because all that
radar
water
in the
property, are you
crosshair.
kidding me? They want that water property.
Yeah,
And what we
yeah.
need to be doing is creating our own environment. We've
That's right.
already got black people in each one of those communities. How do we protect them?
Well, that's why we were talking about reparations, and we really should be talking about housing as a reparation, because we know the redlining, we know the banks and the mortgages, we know, what the non-inclusive things that happen. Even with the GI Bill, just recently I found out that you had black military men that came and bought homes in Cherry Hill and paid double the amount of what other white GIs paid in other communities. So, there's enough evidence to me that says that housing as a reparation is needed. And in some cases that will put the footing, will actually give us the roots in those communities, the strongholds in those communities, so that gentrification can't take place. If we own it, you can't push us out. But when we don't own it, it's easy for them to come and push poor people out of the way.
I think this deserves an offline conversation, because I think you've hit a lot of nails on the head in this conversation. And we need to circle back with this, because there's some stupid money sitting around there that we are just watching walk away. And we always end up on the end of the pipe, opposed to at the beginning of that discussion. But I don't really know you, but I would love to have this conversation again. We need to circle back and have a private conversation before we put it back on the air, because I think what you just said is huge. I don't know that I really realized it until the last of the conversation. This is a huge conversation, and it can change the lives of many of our people.
That'll be our final word. Jason, Marsha, thank you for joining us on this Sunday evening. Good afternoon, world.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless.